One of the other things they're going to do for your client or to your client when they are getting a loan, one of the first things is they are going to do a buyer's analysis on the buyer. Now, obviously, for those of you having the luxury of doing all of the cash deals, this whole section is going to be skipped. But primarily, the buyer's analysis will be done in one fell swoop under this thing that we call a credit score. All right? Something like that. Credit scores range from 350 to like 850 or 300 to 850. My wife has an 810 credit score. She has one late payment about 5 years ago. Other than that, she's pretty perfect on her scores. When we went and got the car, the guy came back. He goes, "This is ironic." He goes, "You've got the best credit score I've ever seen," to Kelly. He looked at me and goes, "You don't have a credit score." That's about right. Because I've not used credit since '99. I bought the house my ex-wife lives in on credit. Haven't bought anything since then. Don't use credit. Not a card anyway. So a credit score is actually created by or given this thing called a FICO score. And for the blue star of the day, you guys know what FICO means? Very close. Fair Isaacs Company. That's what you meant. Good. Fair Isaacs is a statistical model that creates and takes these inputs and creates a score. There are 3 companies that distribute your credit score. You got TransUnion, Experian, and then Equifax. All right? All 3 of those, when guy goes to get his buyer's analysis, they are going to pull what they call a tri-merge. That's all 3 scores. Now, the reason they pull 3 is because while Fair Isaacs Company, or the FICO score, is the standard, each one of them kind of have a different algorithm on how they calculate the score. All right? It's kind of like saying, well, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn may have a different way of posting what you see because there's a different method of calculation. However, all 3 of them use the same 5 parts to your credit score. And here's the parts that count in your credit score. There is a section, and the number 1 or the highest is the history of payments. The history of your payments are 35% of a credit score. How well have you paid your history? Have you paid on time every time? Have you missed one or been late? That is 35% of your credit score. The second one, or the second part, is the utilization of your credit. How well do you utilize it? Meaning, have you not used it, and then all of a sudden you used every credit card, and then you didn't ever use it again? Or are you pretty constant with, I use it, then I pay some off, and then I pay it and use some off? I will tell you that we had this discussion earlier. I don't know, but there is some kind of algorithm that will tell you you don't want your card to be sitting empty, but you don't want it to be full. If it's empty, there has the possibility, let's say you got a $10,000 limit and you've got nothing on it. You would think that would be good. Under the credit reporting, that's not real good, because that means you have the ability at any given moment to be $10,000 more in debt just like that. The other side of that coin is you don't want a $10,000 limit to have $10,000 on it, because that means you have no buffer for any kind of an emergency should something happen. So where's the happy medium? The answer is I don't know. These companies have a secret method on how they do this. The third out of the 5 is the credit length. How long have you had credit? 15% of your score is dedicated to the length of your credit. People all the time say, well, I've got this credit card I've had for 4 or 5 years. I've never used it. I probably should just shut it out. Actually, you shouldn't. That means you've had credit. Probably, if it's been vacant for 4 or 5 years, you probably should go out and make sure there's something on it. Go out and buy a TV or a new computer and pay it off and, keep it fresh and cycled. Don't shut it down. You don't want all your new credit to be less than a year old, because that's another section of your credit, deals with the mix. And the fifth one is any new credit are also 10%. The mix of your credit, they want to see that revolving account like a Visa card, and an installment account like a car payment or another mortgage, because those are different ways to handle credit. A revolving account is where you have a limit and you can use it and pay it off and then use it again and pay it off and use it again, like a Visa card. An installment loan is like a car. You got all of it, you showed you were diligent and paid it all off, and you worked the down. Inquiries, there's a new belief on how inquiries work. If you have inquiries within and the word they use is a short period of time, that represent the same inquiry, they don't ding you all 3 of them like they did. So like if you went and got an inquiry from Huntington and then from Wells Fargo and then Countrywide, all within a 3-day time frame, they are assuming that you are trying to get a mortgage. It's one thing. Now, if you did Wells Fargo on January and you said, you know what, I'm going to wait, and then come March you went to Huntington, they're going to ding you again because there was not a close gap in there. Or if you did the other, Wells Fargo, and then all of a sudden you went to Visa card, and then all of a sudden you went to Cadillac to get a new car. That's 3 different inquiries. All right? So that, and how they are actually determined, no one really knows. They are based on that premises there that you need to, on that percentage, but I don't know the exact mathematical calculation. Now, the other thing that a person's on their credit score, has anybody ever looked at a credit score? It reads this way. And as they roll off, they roll this way. So, you might have an unpaid, paid. And every month it starts to roll off to the left. They drop off, and it keeps 24 months on that credit report. All right? Yeah. Now, they can go back and get all your credit ever, but the current one will run 24 months. What you don't want to see on your credit report at the top is this word: foreclosure. Theoretically, that's why we do a short sale, because a short sale will show up as a satisfied on your credit report. You may have 12 or 14 months of unpaid bills, but they will roll off after a period of 2 years. It'll show as closed. So like if you've got a country, you might have an unpaid, and then it shows closed. And then here the rest of the time, that closed or satisfied because it was sold as a short sale. If it doesn't sell as a short sale and it goes to foreclosure, now it's going to say closed by creditor, and you're going to have the foreclosure at the top so that they know there was a foreclosure. Same thing with a BK, and I don't mean Burger King. All right? That'll show up on your credit report. But that's why you want to do the short sale, so as it's rolling, yeah, it shows satisfied. I have some late payments, but I'm satisfied. It's not the other that. Yeah, 7 to 10 years usually is where it's on your report. As far as getting loans, that is completely up to the lender. There are some people that specialize in helping bankruptcies out. Now, here's the problem. Market rate right now is what? Interest? 4.8? You think a BK guy is going to get that? No. He may get 7. But the way you're supposed to look at it is like, well, at least I can afford a home, and I'll buy my home at 7%, and I'll suck it up for 5 or 6 years until I can refi at, the market rate when I'm a good guy again, and that's what they do. Yeah, it's the fee. It's the fee to re-enter into society. So there's also a couple other things about rebuilding your credit. One is there's those prepaid credit cards. Prepaid credit cards look better than no credit card, but they don't look as good as a signature card. All right?
I've had 2 bankers tell me that on the credit card situation,
Yeah.
what they like to see is 20% of your limit. So if you have $1,000 limit, they would like to see it consistently around $200 if you're using it.
All right, that's a good idea. I will tell you that's probably a good opinion. Yeah, because see, no one knows, and everybody you talk to. All I can tell you is you don't want 0 and you don't want full.
I've done it with my kids, and I say, get the card, you've got the money to pay it off, I want you to buy something that gives you the full amount of the card, and then I want you to pay it off tomorrow, because that shows that you've used that length.
But if you do it exactly,
Keep it under 30%, leave it 30%.
if you pay it all off in 1 month, that's not really credit.
But I'm just talking about that 70% to make it not be
Yeah.
the amount on there. And then I have them carry the 30% and just make their minimum payments. Now, my son is 22 and has a 780 credit score. And that's because I've gone through all this with him and made sure that he's
Yeah.
done all this.
And there are ways to do that. And like I said, one of them is that prepaid where you put money and you get the card. All right. Now, there's another method that you guys need to think about. And Dave, Colin at BMO Harris, they've got this thing called a credit builder CD. This is a friggin' genius idea. What you do is you go in and you put in a savings account, $5,000, and you get a 2-year CD. I'm sorry. You make application to buy a CD on payments. And then what you do is you tie your monthly payment to get automatically withdrawn out of this account that already has the money in it. So what you end up with in 2 years is your $5,000 out of that bank account has been depleted, but you've paid for, and now you have a $5,000 CD. But over the last 2 years, you have made 24 equal payments on time, every time, with no late fee, because they're coming out of something you've already got the money into. All right? It builds credit. It's literally called a credit builder CD. That's what they call it.
That would be a good question. Is the CD something that they would automatically get approved for if they didn't have a credit score?
If they do this method, you're automatically approved for it.
Because you're putting the money up.
You're putting the money up.
Okay, so you're paying the money. It's like doing the prepaid card.
Yes. Only it's a little different because what you're doing is you're asking to buy the CD on payments and using this bank account as the collateral for that credit. So they're going to issue you credit of $5,000 in the form of 24 monthly payments at so-and-so dollars. But what they do is they make those payments automatically withdrawn out of an account where you placed $5,000 into it. You can't touch it. You can, but there comes some rules, So yeah, you want to do this credit building CD with money that you don't really need. I mean, you don't go get it and say, oh, geez, I got to go to the casino tonight. I need that money back. It's money that you need to have somewhere.
Kids, but we borrow a personal loan we co-signed on, and we set them up to automatically. They would automatically pay out of their account. We put the money in their savings account.
Yeah.
So it just paid itself. They paid interest on it. It cost them more money, but it helped their credit.
Well, I mean, you're paying some fee. Another thing you can do is any of those rent-to-own places will also do that. Well, yeah, but this whole thing is silly. I mean, if you need to, that's how he bought the house. He didn't have credit. When my oldest was young, that's what he did. At 21, he went and bought a TV sat in his living room, and he could have bought the TV. But the idea was he bought it on a 6-month contract and then paid it off with a balloon payment. Then he got married, whose wife actually had good credit, and then they bought the house. But that's what he did, was use that rent to own. And it was very expensive, in my opinion. You know, he paid monthly or weekly payments of like $130 for a TV.
That RTO place at H.H. Gregg, you just come in and buy it, they put you on that rent-a-center type thing.
Yeah.
But they charge about almost 40% or 30% of what we would sell it to them if they did our regular credit
Yeah.
card.
But you're doing it for the fact of, one, those people typically, and I hate to say those people, don't have the cash and they want the credit. That's what Brandon did. He did it solely for the credit. We've got Ian kind of doing the same thing down in Bloomington right now. Only it's not a rent-a-center, but it's the same concept. So you need to build that credit. One of the other words, have you guys found out yet? Some of the other things they're going to do with the buyer is check his bank account to make sure he's got down money. Have you guys heard the term sourced and seasoned yet? They want to make sure that their down money is sourced and seasoned. Where it came from and how long have you had it? To make sure that your mom just didn't give you your 20% down yesterday, because that doesn't really prove you're good with money.
We did that for my kid's house, and my eldest son.
Some of them can.
But we didn't gift it to him, but we gifted him money for his wedding, and he was allowed to use that money to buy his house.
Yeah. Some lenders don't care. Some lenders care. They want their money sourced and seasoned. They don't want you to get a gift, because then you have no skin in the game. You have no, and I'm using finger quotes for listening at home, you have no ability to manage your money, yada, yada. They want to see where it came from and how long it's been in there. Typically, when they want something seasoned, they want 60 to 90 days. Yeah. And sourced, another thing about source is not necessarily where it came from. They also wanted to know, is it really not drug money?
Yeah, I had to give him my last 2 months' bank statements to prove that the money came out of my account and went.
Yeah. The other thing is, I mean, back when they had those, what they call liar loans, no doc loans, you would go in and say, I make $8.7 million a year and I $2,000 cash flow every month. Okay, let's get a loan. They were called a no doc loan or a low statement loan, or in the business we called them liar loans, because people would lie all the time. They got into the sourced, and so that they would say, okay, you're buying an $800,000 house. Do you have 20% down? Yeah, that's $160 grand. Where'd you get that? You're a janitor. And I'm not besmirching janitors, but how does a janitor have $160,000 in the bank? That's another way of being sourced. Well, I've saved it over the years of 10 years. Okay, well then if you saved it, let's check the seasoning. Show me 4 months ago's bank statement where it was in there. All right. That is to make sure that no one gave them the money and that they didn't get it. Now, I do know a guy that got questioned, and they asked him where his money came from, and he literally told them, card game. Won it in a card game. And they said, okay. They accepted that. He said, what do I do? Here's where I got it. I'm like, well, Joe, I don't think they're going to, arrest you. I just tell them. He came back in a couple weeks later. He's laughing. He goes, they took it. I'm like, well, they got to. It's the truth. That's where it came from. He won it in a card game, 20 grand.
Money-wise, and it makes sense to buy it.
Yeah. Yeah. I said, I have no idea. He said, but they took it. I mean, well, they've got to, Joe. That's where it came from. They may not like it, but that's where it came from. All right. Next thing, we're going to get into some business planning and sales marketing, but I think we're going to check that out tomorrow.